Good evening. I am going to start the next video in our Major Arcana series, and we got as far as the Empress. Just remind everyone we're using the Rider-Waite Smith deck. That's what this series is based on mostly, though I will start introducing some other cards to illustrate, different ways of depicting, the characters of Major Arcana. But it's mostly based on the Rider-Waite and Smith deck, which is what I'm using. And we started with the Fool, which is the soul about to make its journey. Went on to the Magician, the Manifestor, the High Priestess, urging us to use our feminine intuition, the feminine within. Then we went to the Empress, which is the feminine outside, so the sort of sensual, material, motherly aspect of femininity. And then now we've got to number 4, and number 4 is the Emperor. The Emperor, and this is the year of the Emperor actually, 2020, because 2 and 2 is 4, and it's pretty much the year of the Emperor. Now this is the first card of the Major Arcana in this particular system of correspondences that I'm referring to, which is the Golden Dawn system. It's the first Major Arcana card to be associated specifically to an astrological sign, and in the Golden Dawn system the Emperor is associated with Aries. Okay, so let's first of all look at describe the Emperor as he appears. And the Emperor is very red. There's lots of red in this card, and we saw earlier how white and red are chemical colors, and white is normally the receptive feminine color, as in like the Empress has a white dress, whereas in terms of alchemy, the Emperor is red, so it's kind of very masculine. So it's got a red robe. He's dressed in armor underneath his kind of imperial robes. You can see like he's got the boots of his armor. He wears a crown. He's sitting on a stone throne. He's holding an orb, and he's holding an ankh, a scepter shaped like an ankh, which is the ankh symbol is the Egyptian symbol of life. He has ram horns, rams with their horns decorating his throne. And the landscape that he's in seems quite barren. It's like a deserted, sort of mountainous, but it's kind of deserted or desert mountain landscape. There is no greenery in this landscape. It all looks quite burnt, sunburnt and barren, to add to the redness. And is on his big stone throne. Like the Emperor, as explained, he's the masculine principle. The Empress is the feminine. The Emperor is the pure masculine. He's Aries, which is also associated to Mars, and that again is reflected by the redness of all around him. Mars is the god of war, and it's associated with red. Aries is the initiator. Aries is a fire sign, and it's a cardinal fire sign, so it's the spark. Aries is the spark. The Emperor is the spark. It's the initiator. It's the life force. And also it's quite a martial sign in that is ruled by Aries, so it's quite an active sign. It's a very masculine in terms of the polarity of the tarot, which assigns certain qualities to feminine and masculine. So masculine is active, is perhaps aggressive, is outgoing, is authority, also is shape. So if we look at this throne that he's sitting on, it's very, very square. It's almost like a cube. And a cube is often associated in tarot imagery with the completion of the Major Arcana. It's almost like a almost perfect shape. It has a reference to the tree of life as well. So a cube and a square they are very, very structured shapes, and that's what the Emperor is. He is structure, he is discipline. Look at the Empress, her scepter is all nice and round. So yeah, it's like an orb. Now the Emperor is holding both the male and the female, and is holding his scepter. It's an ankh, so it's holding almost the principle of life in his right hand. Whereas the Empress was like kind of looking, a little bit like the magician in terms of pointing to heaven and to earth. The Emperor is pretty much holding something in both hands. So he's literally holding life and death in his hands. Is the guiding principle, is the authority, is a warrior king because he's wearing armor underneath his robe. So that we do not forget his potentially military and aggressive nature. If need be, he can take off his robe and go to war. So the Emperor is discipline, it's the masculine, active, aggressive, very, very, proactive and structured. So the Emperor, when he appears in our life, he would urge us to look at how authority is appearing in our life. Do we need to use more authority or less authority? How do we relate to authority? How do we relate to a father figure? It could actually indicate a physical person, someone like a father figure, somebody, an older person of authority appearing in our life. But it is pretty much authority, discipline, and also it's the active principle is structured. I've got some other examples here. So in this is the Mythic Tarot, and the Mythic Tarot is based on Greek myths. And the Emperor, as you probably recognize, is effectively Zeus. He's holding the lightning, he's holding the world in his hand, he has the eagle. So in other correspondence systems, the Emperor is actually associated to Jupiter, who is Zeus, or, the king, the emperor of the gods. So that's not, it's just a different kind of correspondence, which it's the same in terms of, when we think about, the emperor, it's a similar, to me, it's a similar correspondence. Jupiter, okay, Aries, Mars is more of a martial sign, and war sign, planet and war planet, whereas Jupiter is more like the king of the gods. They're not mutually exclusive. I see all of those energies in the Emperor. And it's interesting that his dress is blue because it's associated with Zeus. This one is the Emperor from the After Tarot. So with the After Tarot is based on the Rider-Waite-Smith imagery, but it kind of imagines what the image will look like, a second or a moment after. So you have the shot here of the Emperor sitting on his throne, and what the artist has decided here is that what happens just after, is that a ram suddenly appears at his feet, which is quite an interesting tarot. So that was the After Tarot. I'll show you the box of the After Tarot. That's the After Tarot. And it's by, the artwork is by Julia Massaglia. And it's the Scarabeo publishers. So this is, the source of the After Tarot, whereas this is for this one here, for the Emperor with the ram. That's the After Tarot. But the one I use is the Rider-Waite-Smith deck, and of course the Mythic Tarot is Juliet Sharman Burke, and that's another deck that I also use. But that's the Emperor. Number 4 is the male principle. You got female with the Empress, and the male with the Emperor. And don't forget our Fool. our soul going through its journey. So I guess what you could say is that, the Emperor now is kind of met the figures in his life, the male and female in different forms, the sort of occult and spiritual male, and the occult and spiritual female, and the material female and the material male. So you've got, the mother and the father there. And that was the next stage in our, in our Major Arcana journey. That was number 4, the Emperor. And I will leave you there. Think about what the Emperor signifies to you. How does the Emperor appear in your life? Who is the Emperor in your life? Are you the Emperor? Do you need to be more like the Emperor? How do you feel about authority? Is it something that scares you, something that antagonizes you, or something that you crave, something that makes you feel safe and secure? So I'll leave you with that thought. And we will continue very soon with the next card in our series, which is the Hierophant. But for now, I'll leave you with the Emperor, and I hope that he brings you good counsel. Good night.